You are about to learn about one of the greatest archaeological mysteries ever discovered, a forbidden artifact, an object that challenges everything we know about human history. For decades, it has been kept quiet, hidden in the archives of institutions that swear to protect knowledge, but that, in reality, select what you can and cannot know. This is concrete evidence, an ancient piece of evidence that simply should not exist. And when you find out what it contains, you might start to question the entire official narrative about our past. Those who found it had their careers sabotaged. Those who tried to study it were silenced. And those who dared speak out disappeared from the headlines. This object is not just mysterious. It is inexplicable. No known date fits it into the timeline of human history. No technology of the time would be capable of producing it. No text in school textbooks has ever mentioned anything like it. And yet, it exists. And the most disturbing thing? It was found in a geological layer that dates back thousands of years before the earliest known civilizations. What it shows is more than symbolism. It is language. It is engineering. It is advanced knowledge that simply could not have existed in the era to which it was dated. We are faced with hidden evidence, a piece that directly contradicts the version of history told in museums and universities. And that's why you've never heard of it. Because to accept this discovery would be to admit that everything, absolutely everything, we've learned about our origins is incomplete. Or worse, it's being carefully edited, censored, and every time this information tries to surface, it disappears again. Websites are taken down, images are removed. Experts publicly change their minds. But behind the scenes, the academic elite knows what's going on, and they fear that the world will know it too. This artifact bears symbols that do not belong to any known culture. Its inscriptions resemble coded mathematical forms, as if they were instructions, or perhaps a warning. And the material, impossible to reproduce with the tools of the era in which it was created. It is not bronze. It is not iron, it is not stone, it's something that science has not yet been able to name. And when we look at the coincidences with other forgotten discoveries, we begin to see a pattern, a global enigma, a truth buried under centuries of misinformation. Because maybe, just maybe, an object with impossible inscriptions has been unearthed in a remote region of Asia, more precisely in a cave sealed for thousands of years, at the foot of the Altai Mountains. The discovery was made by an independent archaeologist who was not linked to any official institution, and perhaps that is why he had the courage to release the first reports. The artifact, covered in a fossilized layer, looked like just an ordinary stone. But when it was cleaned and analyzed, it revealed a structure that no one expected. An extremely thin metallic plate with engravings that resemble modern circuits, but dated back to at least 10,000 years before the invention of writing. This object does not belong to any known civilization. There are no parallels to Sumer, ancient Egypt, or pre-Columbian civilizations. It simply does not fit. Analysis by experts has revealed something even more alarming. The material that makes it up does not exist in the periodic table as we know it. An uncatalogued substance with perfect electrical conduction properties, resistant to any type of corrosion and with atomic symmetry that defies the laws of modern physics. How could a supposedly primitive people from the past have created something like this? The official response was silence. Universities refused to comment. The laboratory where the sample was examined suffered a technical interruption shortly after the first tests. The data disappeared. But some records survived, and what they show is something that challenges not only archaeology, but the entire accepted narrative about the origin of human civilization. The artifact bears a bas-relief inscription at its center, similar to symbols seen on megalithic constructions scattered throughout various parts of the world, such as Göbekli Tepe and Puma Punku, but with an additional detail. When exposed to certain sound frequency patterns, these symbols seem to emit an electromagnetic response. This is no longer a decorative object. This is technology, ancient, hidden, forgotten, or perhaps deliberately erased from our official history. And the most intriguing part was yet to come. Because during the excavation, other items were found near the artifact. Fragments of a structure that resembled a control panel, with markings identical to those we see today on printed circuit boards. A coincidence? Or evidence that humanity had contact with some kind of intelligence far more advanced than we imagined? The researcher who led the excavation mysteriously disappeared weeks after revealing some of these images on a private online forum. This discovery, which should have made global headlines, was immediately discredited by major media outlets. But the few who saw the original recordings knew this was real. This was the forbidden evidence. And the deeper we delve into this mystery, the more evident it becomes that someone, or something, did everything they could to keep it buried in time. What this artifact reveals goes beyond logic, beyond science, beyond history as we know it. When the first spectrometric tests were performed, the results indicated that the material contained an entirely unknown metal alloy, a fusion of elements that do not occur naturally on our planet. It was not bronze, nor gold, nor any combination previously used by ancient cultures. It was something new, or perhaps too old to be understood by today's tools. Its internal structure featured perfect geometric patterns, reminiscent of modern microcircuits, but with a complexity that surpasses even the most advanced processors of our time. Carbon dating of organic fragments around the object revealed something even more disturbing. It had been there, intact, for more than 17,000 years. That's older than the pyramids of Egypt, older than Stonehenge, older even than any civilization we officially know existed. But the artifact looked freshly made. No signs of corrosion, with millimeter-precise detail, as if it had been made yesterday. This defies everything that official archaeology holds to be true. And there's more. When subjected to specific sound waves, a part of the object reacted with vibration, as if it were programmed to respond to frequencies. This raises a question that no one wants to answer. Are we talking about an artifact or an active technology waiting to be awakened? Its inscriptions are not merely decorative. They follow a binary logic with patterns that, when decoded, resemble algorithms. Ancient algorithms, yes, but functional. It's as if someone, thousands of years ago, had left a coded message, waiting for someone capable to decipher it one day. Comparative linguistics experts have tried to relate the symbols to ancient languages, but have failed. Not Sumerian, not Akkadian, not Proto-Indo-European. Nothing fits. The most widely accepted hypothesis among the few who have studied the artifact in secret is that this language did not even originate on Earth. And that changes everything. Because an object with active technology, dating from an era when humanity barely knew fire, suggests that there was something, or someone, with access to knowledge far superior to ours. Conventional science ignores this. But the data is there. The proof is there. And if this piece was found in such a remote place, how many others might be scattered, buried, hidden all over the world? The reaction from scientists was immediate and silent. No official statement, no press conference. No renowned archaeologist dared to comment publicly on the artifact. And that, in itself, said a lot. Because when something truly revolutionary emerges, science does not usually remain silent unless it is being instructed to do so. One of the few experts who had direct access to the object, on condition of anonymity, confided to an investigative journalist. If this artifact is real, and everything indicates that it is, it destroys our entire historical chronology, and that is why no one will bring this subject up behind the scenes. Another researcher who worked at a European university stated in a leaked recording, "They know what this means, but they can't admit it. Not now, because admitting it means rewriting centuries of history, revising books, dismantling professorships. It means telling the world that they lied, or that they hid it." And since then, his name has disappeared from the institution's faculty database. The page with his academic CV has been deleted, and to this day, he has not been seen again at scientific events. Some say that the device was transferred to an underground facility under military jurisdiction. Others claim that it was dismantled and taken to private research centers funded by corporations operating above the law. The fact is that no academic center wanted to publish the original test data, and any mention of the object in scientific publications was removed, with the justification of lack of verification. But the truth is different. The truth lies between the lines of silence. It lies in the averted glances. It lies in the fear of losing funding, reputation, or even freedom. Even independent scientists began to disappear from the discussion. Videos were deleted, profiles were closed, theories were debunked by agencies that never even investigated the case in depth. The pattern repeated itself. Every time someone tried to present concrete evidence, they were immediately discredited, labeled a lunatic, or simply erased from the conversation. And the more this happened, the more the feeling grew that there was something much bigger behind it, something that needed, at all costs, to remain out of the public's reach. But the most disturbing thing was not the silence. It was the look on the face of one of the few people who, unintentionally, appeared in an old interview commenting on the artifact. A retired professor with more than 40 years of experience in archaeology, who, when asked about the piece, simply said, "I saw it, I know, and that's why I walked away." A second later, he got up from the interview and left the room. Not a single word. But at that moment, what was not said spoke louder than any scientific explanation could offer. When the existence of the artifact began to gain notoriety in alternative forums and underground research networks, defenders of the official narrative quickly rushed to present an explanation. The hypothesis? A recent forgery, created by some experimental artist or group of intellectual provocateurs. According to these spokespeople of institutionalized history, it was simply a piece manufactured with modern techniques and buried on purpose to cause controversy. But there was a problem. Several, in fact. The first was the material. No technology known today could replicate that unknown metal alloy, with a perfectly symmetrical hexagonal atomic structure and resistance above that of any cataloged compound. Then came the claim that it might be a meteorite naturally shaped by erosion and compression. But how could a meteorite have organized symmetrical inscriptions and a coded linguistic pattern? Official science, faced with this, tried to divert attention. They began to question the location of the discovery, claiming possible soil contamination or an error in dating. But even this was disproved when independent laboratories outside the academic circuit repeated the tests with identical results. The artifact was real, ancient, and completely out of context. The current theory simply does not hold up to the evidence. It is like trying to explain away a smartphone buried in the ruins of Pompeii by saying it was a misinterpretation. There is no plausible argument that can account for the technological precision, the electromagnetic response to sounds, the coding system present in the inscriptions, or the unknown origin of the material. And yet, they would rather say it was an archaeological mistake than face it for what it really represents: a colossal flaw in the accepted historical narrative. Some researchers have suggested that the artifact was brought to the site more recently by unknown hands, but they have completely ignored the fact that the geological layer where it was found had remained untouched for more than 15,000 years. A fossilized layer naturally compacted over the millennia. To place it there, someone would have had to have manipulated time itself, or have been present at that time. much earlier than our chronology allows. It is at this point that the fragility of the official explanations begins to become as evident as it is uncomfortable, because every attempt to explain the discovery ends up requiring more faith than the acceptance of what the data shows. And with each new independent analysis, with each new, unintentionally leaked result, the truth begins to emerge, not as a myth, but as a concrete, dangerous, and uncontrollable possibility for those who wish to keep the curtains closed on the history of humanity. In the face of the collapse of official hypotheses, theories began to emerge that, until recently, would have been considered pure fiction. But when reality refuses to fit within the limits of what is acceptable, imagination becomes a tool for investigation. The first major possibility raised by independent researchers was the existence of a civilization that predated ours, a forgotten humanity, which had achieved a level of technological and scientific knowledge far beyond what we have today, and which, for reasons still unknown, had been erased from history. A lost cycle, swept away by a global cataclysm or deliberately eliminated by the hands of time. Or something greater. What if this isn't the first humanity? This uncomfortable and provocative question has begun to resonate among scholars who have dared to look beyond the confines of academia. They point to parallels between the artifact and other enigmas scattered around the world. Unexplained megalithic structures, ancient maps with orbital precision, and myths from ancient cultures that speak of gods coming from the stars. All of this begins to make more sense in a new light, that perhaps at some remote point in the past, we shared this planet with another form of intelligence, or even received instructions from it. Some believe that we are dealing with traces of extraterrestrial contact, a hypothesis that, as controversial as it may seem, begins to hold up when we observe the similarities between the inscriptions on the artifact and the geometric patterns seen in modern crop circles, or in the symbols engraved in caves around the world, places where, supposedly, there has never been cultural exchange. The coincidences are many. The explanations are increasingly scarce, as if the past were trying to send us a coded message, just waiting for the right moment to be deciphered. There are still those who explore a third possibility: time manipulation. The artifact, with its anomalous behavior in response to sound frequencies and energy patterns, could be a lost piece of technology that transcends the linearity of time as we understand it. A fragment of a future that, for some reason, materialized in our remote past. This idea, although even bolder, finds support in scientific reports of subatomic particles that defy the laws of causality, and in quantum theories that suggest multiple layers of reality coexisting simultaneously. Each of these theories raises more questions than it answers, but they all point in the same direction. The artifact is real, and its mere appearance already represents a profound rupture with the model of the world that we have been taught. Because if we accept the existence of a previous, external, or future advanced intelligence, then we need to rethink everything. Absolutely everything. And the deeper we delve into this mystery, the clearer it becomes that this artifact is not alone. There are connections, patterns, clues left everywhere, as if fragments of a forgotten history are scattered across the planet, waiting to be pieced together. Just look at the riddles of Sumer, the oldest civilization we know of. Their clay tablet records tell of celestial beings who descended from the heavens bearing knowledge and tools. Tools that bear, oddly enough, the properties described in this newly discovered object. Is it a coincidence that the Sumerians depicted their gods in shapes and costumes that resembled spacesuits? Then there are the ruins of Pumapunku in Bolivia, with stone blocks cut with laser precision, perfect fittings, and unknown symbols engraved with techniques that even today we would not be able to reproduce. And in Göbekli Tepe, the oldest temple in the world, dating back more than 12,000 years, there are columns carved with figures of non-human beings, astronomical codes, and references to cosmic events that we are only now beginning to understand. These sites have something in common. they were intentionally buried or forgotten for millennia, as if someone wanted to hide something or protect it. We cannot ignore the stories about Atlantis either, the civilization described by Plato as having advanced technology, mastery over energies, and monumental structures. Many consider it a myth. But the question that arises is, why do so many cultures separated by oceans and different eras describe something so similar? A highly developed civilization, suddenly destroyed, which left enigmatic traces all over the planet. Fragments of submerged columns, symmetrical formations on the ocean floor, marks that align with specific constellations. All of this forms a mosaic that seems to point to a truth that we are not yet ready to accept. Even artifacts like the Antikythera mechanism, found at the bottom of the sea in Greece, challenge our technological timeline. An analog computer with gears so precise that modern industrial tools would be required. Or the Phaistos disk, with its still undeciphered language and geometric patterns that resemble data matrices. These objects do not stand alone. They form a puzzle that, when put together, reveals a narrative parallel to the one we were taught in school. A narrative that suggests that knowledge was inherited, not developed. That something, or someone, came before us, left its mark, and then mysteriously disappeared. Has our history been erased or rewritten? This question echoes ever louder as we piece together these hidden pieces, these forgotten fragments that point to a completely different version of humanity. One that begins not in caves, but perhaps in the stars. A parallel timeline, hidden beneath layers of dirt, silence, and convenience. And when we come across artifacts like these, that defy the laws of science, the limits of time, and the contours of reality, we are forced to confront something even deeper. What if everything we know is just part of a carefully crafted narrative designed to keep us safe? Think about it. Since childhood, we have been taught to believe in a continuous, predictable line, where human evolution occurs slowly, linearly, and exclusively on Earth. But these traces show something else. They show interruptions. They show impossible leaps. They show technologies that should be impossible, but exist. And that is precisely where the discomfort arises. Because accepting this evidence is to confront not only the history books, but our own sense of identity. Who are we? Where do we really come from? And why have we been so far removed from this origin? This is not just an archaeological question. It is an existential question. What else might be buried, hidden from us? What truths have been sealed away by governments, institutions, and elites who control the flow of knowledge? And more importantly, why? What is so dangerous about knowing who we once were? Would understanding our past give us too much power or too much awareness? Because perhaps what is at stake here is not just the rewriting of history, but the awakening of a collective memory that has been purposefully dormant. How many civilizations came before ours and were erased? How many truths were lost in accidental fires, in destroyed libraries, in documents that never reached the public? What if all of this is part of a cycle, a universal pattern where knowledge is revealed, then hidden, and then reborn in another time? When we look at this evidence with uncensored eyes, it all seems to point in the same direction. There is a secret layer behind the reality we know, a layer that is only now beginning to emerge, challenging everything we have been taught to accept as absolute. What if this artifact is just the beginning? This possibility is no longer a theory, but rather a growing suspicion among alternative researchers, dissident historians, and scientists who have decided to break the silence. Because as we investigate this enigmatic object, other clues have begun to emerge. Stories buried in the footnotes of military archives, documents leaked by former space agency employees, and forgotten testimonies of ancient peoples who speak, repeatedly, of sacred objects fallen from the sky. Objects with power, wisdom, and purpose. relics that were not created by human hands, but received as gifts or warnings from something much greater. There is growing suspicion that this artifact is part of a set, as if there were multiple fragments scattered around the world, forming a kind of global code or mechanism. Some legends speak of stone discs hidden in the mountains of Tibet, others of metal cylinders buried in the sands of the Sahara, each emitting its own frequency, as if waiting to be activated simultaneously. Could we be looking at a network of ancient technology that, once deciphered, could reveal a map, a message, or a portal? The patterns repeat themselves. The coincidences accumulate, and when coincidences become recurrent, they are no longer accidental. Even reconnaissance satellites have already captured magnetic anomalies in remote regions, coincidentally in the same places described by ancient traditions as sacred sites or dwellings of the gods. Official science ignores them, but the data is in the sensors. Something is pulsating beneath the surface of the planet, something that interacts with energy fields, reacts to certain astronomical alignments, and seems to follow a logic, as if it obeyed a cosmic calendar that we still do not understand. And the most intriguing thing, the most intense signals coincide with places where similar artifacts were discovered, cataloged, and mysteriously disappeared. The artifact that started this journey is real. That is no longer up for debate. The real question now is, what is it trying to tell us? Is it a reminder, a trace of something we have forgotten, or the first step in a greater revelation yet to come? Because if this object was so carefully buried millennia ago, if it was protected for ages, and if those who tried to reveal it were silenced, then it is not only valuable, it is dangerous to those who profit from ignorance. It poses a real threat to the control structure that keeps our history fragmented, our collective memory dormant, and our true origins buried in oblivion. If this artifact is just the beginning, then we may be on the brink of the greatest revelation of our time, a discovery that speaks not only of forgotten technology or lost civilizations, but of the true identity of humanity. Because when the pieces begin to fit together, when the signs of hidden knowledge cross cultures, continents, and millennia, the truth can no longer be buried. It resurfaces, restless, calling out to those who have the courage to see beyond the veil. And you, who have come this far, perhaps you have already begun to awaken. Now, I want to know, do you believe that they have hidden the true history of humanity from us? Comment below, I want the truth. This helps the video reach more people who, like you, are looking for answers outside the box. If you made it to the end, please like this video. This shows that you are committed to the truth. And, of course, subscribe to the channel so you don't miss the next revelations that are coming. And now watch the next video that is appearing on your screen. In the next one, I will reveal the place where this artifact was censored by the elite. You will understand why they did everything to hide this from the world. See you there.